Hi, I am Dr. Becky Whetstone, a marriage and family therapist, and my co-host is here with me, my daughter, Casey Marie Schmidt, and we want to welcome you to Curl Talk. What's going on with you, Casey Marie?
Not much, just enjoying my day off.
Yes, I know. I know. Do you like doing Curl Talk on your days off? You feel dragged here by your mother?
I know. I think you heard that I had time free and you were just like, not on my watch. No, I enjoy the conversation. And even though like when I'm getting ready, I'm just like, I want to do something else. But as soon as I get into it, I have a hard time wanting to stop. But I think the only thing that gets on my nerves about it is that I hate having to get ready on a day, like my one day where I wouldn't have to get ready. Like I feel like my hair is going to start falling out if I really do wash it every day of the week.
Yeah. I relate. I'm on the weekends, I'm definitely a no makeup and super grub clothes person. And so we can't do Curl Talk like that. We have to fluff up. We have to fluff up the curls, you know, and put on our makeup stuff and deceive people. Maybe one day we could do a show where we do our grub with no makeup and no hair and see what people think.
If I don't do it for my loved ones, I'm not going to do it for the entire world.
Well, speaking of this, we're talking about our viewers' expectations. Viewers' expectations might be that we come here, you know, looking decent, acceptable, socially acceptable. And that's what we were going to talk about today is expectations and how they destroy relationships. And I can tell you, you know, I'm a couples therapist, and that is so huge. And people come into relationships with certain expectations, and then they plop that, like if I have an expectation, I plop it on you, Casey Marie, and then you don't meet my expectation, we're going to be having a negative conversation about that. Do you see that a lot in your world, people having expectations?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think it differs between someone's assumed that something is going to be a certain way versus, you know, a conversation. Like if someone says, well, if you marry me, I promise it's going to be different. This is going to be like this, and we're going to do this together, and I'm going to meet X, Y, and Z. You know, so that's one way, but also just well, I'm sure once we get married, he's going to stop doing this and start doing this, you know. So
those are some of the greatest self lies ever told.
Yeah.
I tell my clients, people don't get better with marriage. Whatever bad behavior is going on when you're dating, it gets worse. I promise that's how it goes. So, but with expectations, you know, my dad told me a story when I was a kid. I was obsessed with relationships as a kid. I would read Ann Landers and Dear Abby and Dr. Joyce Brothers in the newspaper, and I was fascinated by relationships. And then my dad would talk about them sometimes. And he told me this story one time about a married couple, newlyweds, and the husband. This is back, you know, when the man worked and the woman stayed home. So like a really old story from the patriarchal days.
But he was born in 1912, if that gives anyone an insight.
So, yeah, exactly. He was a dinosaur. And so my dad said that the husband had to go on a business trip early the next morning. He wakes up, he's ready to leave for his business trip, and he screams at his wife, "Where's my packed suitcase? Didn't you pack my suitcase?" And she went, "Pack your suitcase? Of course not. You know, you pack your own suitcase." And so, you know, they had a conflict right then and there. And come to find out that in their biological families, Her father, when he took a business trip, always packed his own suitcase. And in his family, his mother always packed his dad's suitcase. And so he had the expectation that that's what wives do. He brings that expectation into his marriage. And then because that's not what there's no understanding of that on her end, she's going to disappoint. And the truth is, what's healthy is you cannot create expectations of another adult without their permission. So I can't really have any expectations of you or anyone else unless you and I talk about something, agree on something, commit to it, and then now I'm able to have an expectation. But to just create things that you think I should be doing out of thin air and putting them on me is very, very, very unhealthy dynamics in relationships. Mm-hmm. Is that the kind of stuff that you see?
Oh, I'm picturing it right now. I'm picturing, guy friends coming to me and just saying like, she got mad. She said, why didn't you do this? And, I didn't even know that thing existed. What are you talking about? And then it'll just start this big fight. And I'm just like, well, what's the harm in her just saying, hey, will you do this thing? He's like, well, she said I should already know to do it. And I'm just like, I'm a girl. I don't see like that's some kind of pre-wired thing in our head. Like that doesn't make sense to me either. If I really wanted or needed someone to do something, I would ask them. Or
you have to. Yeah. People are not mind readers. But what I have wives say frequently in my office is, if he loved me, he would know. And I go, no, that is not a measure of love, because the man is not a mind reader. And so you're going and to get someone to love you in the way that floats your boat and makes your heart sing, you have to teach the other person how that is. And then people say, well, that makes it, like it's a duty then, and it's not like spontaneous that he's just choosing to do it. But I could tell a thought crossed your mind there.
But it won't feel like a duty if you love the person. And, a person who loves you is going to want to satisfy you and want to look out for you. They just might not know the ways. And, just like the story that you were telling, they had different expectations of what was going to be serving their person. Mm-hmm. It just never occurred to her because she'd never seen it happen. And so,
exactly.
You have to let the person know which things matter to you so that they'll know, how to show that.
It is completely a boundary violation to create a rule or, that you something that you need to do for me. And I'm setting a rule, and the rule is that you're going to greet me at the door every night when I come home from work, and to put that on you without a conversation, without your agreement, that's a complete and total boundary violation. And so if you want me to meet you at the door every night, you need to say, you know what, I would really love it. It really makes my heart sing if you would meet me at the door most nights when I come home from work. Those kinds of things. And relationships, in the beginning, we don't know people that well. We think we do, but we don't. And so as you live with them or spend a lot of time with them, and they start telling you what makes their heart sing, and you learn those things, then over time you don't have to be talking about those things anymore, because you've learned them, and what makes them happy and what makes them feel loved by you. But it's just immature to say you should know. That is ridiculous, completely ridiculous. No one can know what's going on in your mind about what you want me to do. So just tell me. And you're right, Casey, if I really love you, it will be a pleasure to do something for you that makes you happy. That's what love is, a verb. It's an action word. It's really not a feeling. And you may have heard that phrase, love is not a feeling. It's a decision. It's a choice that I am going to dedicate myself to enhancing your life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it is. So, what can I do to make you feel loved by me becomes the question. So, a lot of people are very misguided about the subject of expectations. And I guess in the workplace too, let's say a boss who's a very poor communicator may have expectations and you don't meet them. And I remember one time in one of my reviews or something, I got in trouble for doing something many years ago. I was criticized for X, and I said, but you never told me that you wanted X done. If you'd have told me, it would have been done, but you can't just sit there and resent me silently and then pull it on me in the review, because you didn't give me a chance. I was like, no, I reject, reject.
Well, they should know that that's what they're expected to do.
No, that is poor communication. Literally, like, you have to spell stuff out for human beings. That's all there is to it. And by the way, just because I told you that I want you to meet me at the door every evening when I come home from work, and you don't agree, then I can't have that expectation. I've got to get your agreement. You've got to be on board. I can't expect, say you're going to do this and that's all there is to it.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question is, someone might have an expectation and they will do right by communicating it. But what happens when there is a disagreement about, enough expectations? I mean, does that just spell out?
Thank you. Dr. Phil always says everything in relationships is negotiable. I've had couples come into my office that are polyamorous, where it's okay in their relationship. They've agreed that they can fall in love with other people but they love each other, but they can go out here and be in love with other people.
Well, I was just laughing.
And that's okay. And that's their agreement. They've negotiated that. It wouldn't be for me. I think there's all sorts of pitfalls in that, but maybe some people can pull it off successfully.
No, I've known.
Now, most of us know that if we're in a romantic relationship, the expectation is monogamy. Like, most of us don't even, once you reach the conversation of, are we an item? Are we exclusive? That's what that means. So you don't need to be talking about that. But if that changes, if you've decided you want to do an open marriage, that needs to be updated and renegotiated. And you cannot put that on your spouse without their permission. So if they don't agree to an open marriage, it's a no-go. Okay, you cannot expect the open marriage. So everything's negotiated. When you have a difference, like, I really want this thing and you don't, then that's where I have to, what you want for yourself, that self-care that you're practicing over there is precious as gold. If you really need that for yourself, I need to honor that, and so now I've got to take care of myself because I don't get to have everything that I want.
Mm-hmm.
But that involves me kind of nurturing and consoling myself and coaching myself through it in a way that doesn't damage the relationship. So yes, you cannot have everything you want in a relationship. There is no doubt that a long-term relationship involves sacrifice. You've just got to decide in those moments, are these things that don't matter that much? Then you can let things slide. But if they're really important issues, I mean, that's where the term irreconcilable differences came from, that in divorce. You might have two good people who just have such huge differences that, and those are in their big deal things. And so they don't make it.
Yes. Well, I think that people don't think enough about which problems really matter to them when they're distracted about how it makes them feel, because they're concentrating on their partner saying no and how that reflects on how they feel about them. You know, it's not so much the issue like, oh, he won't greet me at the door, but he doesn't love me because he won't do it, you know, and so they're so distracted by that mirror, you know, and how that
Well,
makes them feel.
human beings are meaning making animals, unfortunately. And the meaning that we put on things is most often very inaccurate. So if my husband doesn't want to do something that I really want to do, if I say, well, that means you don't love me, I'm literally making that up. Like I'm creating that meaning out of thin air, and who knows whether it's true or not. You see what I'm saying? Like, in fact, when people do that in my office, I'll go, wait. What is your evidence that he doesn't love you? What is your evidence? Because they'll go, oh, and this means he doesn't care about me. Okay, so where's your evidence that he doesn't care about you? You can't tell someone they don't care about you or they don't love you unless you can back it up with evidence. So part of having a healthy relationship with someone is checking your reality and checking the meaning that you put on things, because if you don't have the evidence of what you're thinking, it's just conjecture.
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of people would use those things as evidence.
Well, yes, but the fact is you're wrong, because I do care about you and I do love you. And so, you know, you're doing math in your head. 2 + 2 equals I don't care about you or I don't love you, but I know your math is wrong. And so that's not my problem, that's your problem. And a lot of people, that's the main issue in their marriage, is what one person is making up over here about the other person. You don't love me, you don't care. You know, I've literally dated men where they'd go, you know, you don't love me. And I'd go, my God, I love you. I love you so much. I love you. No, you don't. Ah, you know, what can you do? So some people honestly are chronically empty, and you can pour all the positive mojo into their pitcher and it'll just fall out the bottom. They cannot feel it. And that's a person that's just always going to be telling you that what you are doing for them is not enough, not enough, not enough. And they'll drive you to the brink of insanity, because you're going, I don't know what else to do. I've done everything I can think of to make this person know that I love them. Mm-hmm. Some people, that's one of their disabilities, some people.
Well, I mean, yeah, I've listening to you and thinking about relationships that I've had a lot like that. And I think that it's usually either their lack of self-esteem or it's their way to control. And they're trying to make me feel desperately, you know, wanting to make them feel that I love them. So I'm always looking for ways to, you know, gush and prove myself. And that's just their way to keep a controlling hand on the relationship. But other times it's just because they, like the latter thing that we've talked about before in other episodes about where you see yourself and where you see your worth, and not being able to, you know, go very far from it. You know, you can't make such a leap. And, you know, I think a lot of people just can't accept that someone would love them.
Well, you're right, because in the last episode, I talked about how if you are in a relationship with low self-esteem people, people that don't like themselves, that are not okay with themselves, they can't imagine anyone would love them. That doesn't make sense to them, but they're with you, of course. But they're thinking you're a fool, or there's something wrong with you that you would be with someone like them. So those are the ones that are insecure, because they can't imagine that they don't feel lovable, and it doesn't make sense to them that you love them. So it never feels solid to them. And it's and so now we've got this problem in the relationship, and the problem is related to your bad relationship with yourself. That's what it's related to. I've seen so many couples too break up over the fact that, say somebody married someone that they perceived was well above their level, and then this person ended up rising to join them and became very successful also in many ways and all this stuff. But even though they've made a lot of positive moves in their life and a lot of great things are going for them, they don't feel comfortable up here. They can't maintain up here. And a lot of them will have to leave this person, because this person who's more solid makes them feel bad about themselves.
I think that's a popular
reminder. What?
I think that's a popular movie plot.
Yeah. Yes. I've seen it time and time again. This person over here self-destruct. Maybe become a horrible alcoholic, or have an affair with somebody that's totally out of, in another, like not a very positive person they have an affair with, and you're going like, why are they with that person? They actually feel more comfortable with the person who's not got as many qualities. That's actually where they may feel they belong.
Well, see, and that reminds me of the thing that we mentioned last episode too, where I would hear people say, well, I deserve this. I'm with that person because that's what I deserve. I don't deserve better.
And you're talking about that in a negative way. I'm with this bad person because that's all I deserve. Well, exactly right. And if people get anything from this show, it's going to be, I hope, that you got to have a positive relationship with yourself. Like you cannot have a healthy relationship with somebody else. It will poison your relationship with other people if you do not have a healthy relationship with yourself. So you've got to believe you're worthy and that you deserve love and all those things. You've got to solidly believe that, and believe that you've got a lot to offer another person. And if you don't have that, just please devote yourself to getting strong with your self-esteem, and start kind of having a shake hands with yourself, and start having a good relationship within. And then once you believe you're solid, then what happens with the healthier you get emotionally, you attract healthy people into your sphere. But the truth is when you're really, really dysfunctional and kind of, you've seen train wreck people, they attract train wrecks to their life. Like people who are healthy don't go out with train wrecks. Only unhealthy people go out with train wrecks. So that is for sure. That's relationship physics a la Dr. Becky.
Going through my relationship Rolodex now and wondering what it says about me.
Well, I am your mother, and most mothers think it's going to be a rare person who's going to be good enough for their child.
I think I've disliked everyone until we break up, and then you like them a little bit, and then you go back to hating them.
Now what?
You usually don't like anyone I'm dating. You might like them a little bit, like once things are serious, but you usually don't like anyone.
Well, the joke is when you tell me that you're dating someone new, I respond with, I hate them.
Yes. And yes, people are like, why won't you tell me about your relationships? And I'm like,
But I thought you knew I was joking.
Well, if it's every experience, like, hey, how's that piece of shit that you like?
Well, you know, I think you're extraordinary. And that therein, this is my problem, is I think you're extraordinary. And it is painful for a parent who believes they have an extraordinary child and the child themselves doesn't see themselves as extraordinary. And then the child doesn't live true to, you know, what the parent sees as true. And you're like, why doesn't she see what I see? And the truth is, I have that same kind of relationship with a lot of my clients who I think are just spectacular people with every gift. And yet they don't believe it. You know, they just don't believe it. And a lot of it is from damage from your childhood and stuff. You know, it gets complicated. You know, maybe you had a parent who demeaned you all the time.
So you only wish that I could feel this way about myself, but I can't because my parents damaged me.
Well, certainly not intentionally. But
oh, well, then
I know from the childhood trauma world that I don't care how well intentioned a parent is or how smart they are or how much they know or any of that stuff. Most of our children are still going to come out with some trauma. So, you know, and so if on any level you feel you don't see what I see in you, then that's basically what that tells me. And so, okay, so if someone is not seeing their gifts, they need to do some trauma work. But there's not that many people who go out and do that. Most people kind of just go along kind of comfortably uncomfortable without pushing themselves to evolve and grow into, you know, understanding their self-worth and how to have healthy relationships with self and others. I think really only about 5% are seekers. That's what I call them. Like, I don't like the way my life's going right now. I hate it. I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to figure out what's wrong with me so I can get to a place where I feel better. It's not enough people do that. Wish more would do that. You can't make people. I asked a professor in graduate school one time, you know, why won't these people get help? Why won't they get help? And he would say, they're not miserable enough. He's like, people can be pretty unhappy and just keep going along in their life. And you just know that if they ever reach that point where they get miserable enough, they will go seek answers. So that's what, when a wife or a husband in my office says, why won't my husband work on that? Why won't my spouse work on that? And I'll say, well, they're not miserable enough. And it's the truth. You've got to really be sick of yourself to want to spend the time and effort that it takes to be different.
Unless you think it's what you deserve.
Here's what I believe. Nobody deserves negative things or, you know, unhappy experiences. Nobody deserves that. So I would take that off the table.
Unalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
I use that phrase in my office a lot, especially when someone's married to a control freak. You have the right to liberty, and you know, come on. No other person has the right to control you, period. But that's a whole nother show. Today we were talking about expectations. Is there anything else you want to be sure and bring up in regards to this conversation?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Okay, well, just to wrap up, bottom line, you cannot have expectations of other adults without their permission. You've got to negotiate something and get their agreement. And then when they agree, you may now have an expectation. And no, people can't read your mind, and no, people should not know. You have to teach people how to love you and what you need. And with that said, thank you for joining Curl Talk today. We want to hear from you. Please email us. Please visit our website. Tell us what works for you in these shows. Tell us what you'd like to see, what subjects you'd like to talk about, what guests you'd like to see on the show. If you'd like to be a guest, we just want to hear from you. Casey Marie, you want to say bye?
Yes, thank you everyone who came to listen, and hope that we talked about some things that you wanted to hear about, and let us know anything else, and we'll see you next time.
Take care. Thank you for joining Curl Talk.